Welcome home. This is the Irish Roots Cafe, where every day's a holiday and there's always room for one more. Come right this way. We've got a seat for both of us right here in the corner booth at Brown's, our guest cafe for the day.
Oldest Irish business in North America. She says the only thing I ever stole in my life, and I had to go right up to church and confess it. And it ends up being Puff Daddy. I mean, here's Sean Puffy Combs, a famous guy, and you know he's thinking, why didn't they just say they want my autograph? June 16, 2007. It's going to be on the grounds around Brown's at 33rd in Pennsylvania.
I'm Mike OLaughlin, your host. Reach me on my webpage at irishroots.com. That's where you can check out the written show notes on my blog for this episode and search all of our podcasts by typing in any search term that you like. Yes, it's just another free service from the Irish Roots Cafe. Oh, and don't forget, you can phone 816-256-3360 to leave your comments or your family search on my recorder. Try it, you like it, get some exposure for that search out there, folks. If you're serious about finding your Irish ancestors, try the newest tool in Irish genealogy. That's our Irish Roots audio message board. Just call in and leave a brief family search. We'll do the rest. We will also be adding an audio feature to our blog soon. One last note, there will be a pod camp, sort of an unconvention in Kansas City, right by the airport on Saturday, July 21st. We'll be there, so be sure and drop by if you're in the area. It'd be great to see you all in person. We have a good interview today at Browne's Deli, our first remote broadcast ever, and our first road trip. We've all been invited to their shindig on June the 16th, so keep that in mind too. I'll be there doing some more interviews, so come on down and enjoy or tell me a good story. Where's the oldest business in North America, the oldest Irish business, and maybe even in the world? I bet you don't know and you can't even guess unless you've already been told. And how did Sean Puff Daddy Combs come to a place of honor there? The name of the week is Brown, no matter how you spell it, in honor of our guest. We'll return to more of our regular features next week. I actually started this interview as part of our new podcast series on the Irish, but it was so good I'm sharing it right here on the Irish Families podcast. There'll be more when the new series is introduced. I'll let you know just in case you'd be interested. You can tune into that podcast. Now we'll cover a little Brown family history before our interview. Today's information is taken from a couple of books. First, the Book of Irish Families Great and Small, and also the Families of County Kerry, Ireland, where a lot of the Browns can be found to this day. Both books are from my 28-volume set, which covers Irish families by county. I'll have a larger list of sources on the show notes in my blog. We've got over 300 references to the name found in our free surname search on the webpage, and related spellings you might want to know just in case. For Brown are Lebrun, which is L-E-B-R-U-N, Bruna, Brown, B-R-O-U-N-E. Browning can be shortened to the name Brown. And Brownrigg is another name found in Ireland that can be shortened simply to Brown, as can the surname of Brownlow. Well, now that we've got that covered, let's move into take a little look about the Brown family in Ireland. Now, you might have already guessed that Brown is a pretty common name, not just in Ireland, but in Scotland and England. As a matter of fact, in Scotland and England, it's one of the top 10 most numerous names, but in Ireland, it's not quite as bad as a Murphy, a Kelly, or a Sullivan because it's one of the 50 most numerous names there. And as you might guess, some of the name in Ireland come from Scotland, some from England, and some of them are actually native Irish. It's sort of hard to tell sometimes, but sometimes the final E in the name makes it more certain that the name came from Ireland. Now, one of the noted tribes of Galway were the Brown family, and those are of Anglo-Norman descent more anciently, and they came from the older spelling of Browne. And they are still of note today in the area. You can find them all over, as you'll hear later today in our interview. In the north of Ireland, in the province of Ulster, you'll find that many of the Browns are of Scottish heritage there. That's common with a lot of families in Northern Ireland. It's just a leapfrog from Ireland to Scotland and Scotland to Ireland, and there's been a lot of intertwining of the blood for centuries. And you'll find that the Browns there were among the Ulster Scots settlers in the 17th century. The Browns of Killarney, who settled in County Kerry under Elizabeth I, some of those are of English heritage, and they've remained on or near their land right down into the modern day. You'll also find some old Irish Browns there too, I think. And you can find the name in County Limerick near Camas or Camus. And really, you can find it just about all over Ireland. It's in so many books. It's in so many of our source books that it's hard to tell where to even start. And in the 17th century, you find the spelling with the E on it a lot of times up in the north, and the same way in the 1890 birth index. And if you're by the National Library in Dublin, Ireland, you can find some estate papers on the Brown family if you're interested in doing some serious research. Now, you get down into the coat of arms for the name. The Irish Book of Arms include the family of Browne of Riverstown, Browne of Browie, and Browne, surprisingly enough, of Brownstown. That one was in County Mayo. The pedigrees of several of the name in County Wexford, London, and Ireland, and Galway are given by the famous author John O'Hart in some of his works. I'll tell you, if you're starting out for Brown, you pay attention to those first names. I remember when I was looking, I found a lot of people was down in Kerry, they were called Valentine Brown. So if you've got a Valentine Brown in your family, you might know just where to come back and start looking, because there's so many Browns, but there's not as many Valentine Browns, at least not by my reckoning. So that we'll just consider that the tip of the week. Be aware of the first names in the family. Sometimes that can be a big help. Now, in the Families of County Kerry, we have several individuals cited, including the Earls of Kenmare and the Valentine Brown that I noted, and some of the Brown landowners from 1876 are listed as well. I'll have some more information on the Brown genealogy on the show notes if you're interested. Now let's stop and pay a visit to Brown's Deli and talk with Kerry Brown there. Well, welcome. We're at the Irish Roots Cafe, and last week somebody called and said, hey, you got to see this place. You got to go down. It's a place called Brown. So we all hopped into the van. Big John Sweeney, there he is now. They're getting out. I pulled in ahead of him. But this is a really special interview with some really special folks. The name of the place is Brown's, and I think you spell it with an E at the end, and that you should never forget that. Isn't that right,
That
Kerry?
is right. That's the Irish way. Don't forget our E at the end.
That's right. Very particular. Now, what kind of history is there behind that you know about your family, where they came from, or what they've done in the States?
Well, it's been easy for us because a lot of them are still there, so we didn't have to trace it. They're all in County Kerry, Ireland. The store was opened by my great-grandparents, Ed and Mary Flavin, and they came from Listowel, which happens to be a sister city.
That was Flavin, you said?
Flavin. Flavin, as they'd say it.
Flavin?
Yes.
And where did they come from?
Listowel in County Kerry.
That's right. That's not Listowel. It's Listowel.
Listowel. And it's a sister city to Shawnee, Kansas.
Oh, I'll be doggone. And what year did they come here and open up Brown's Irish? Is this Brown's Irish Market, Irish Deli?
Brown's Irish Market and Deli.
Okay.
When you're 120 years, you just keep adding names on.
That's right. It gets longer and longer. Patrick and Son and Son and Son.
Exactly. They came in approximately the 60s. They opened Brown's, it was actually Flavin's Market at that time, in the front of their house at 27th and Jefferson.
Right.
And then they moved to our current location in 1901, which was kind of on the outskirts of the city of Kansas City.
Right.
And we've been in this building ever since, and this year we're celebrating our 120th anniversary.
Now, 120 years, that's pretty special. If you ask somebody where the oldest Irish-owned business?
Oldest Irish business in North America.
In North America. This would be good for our listeners in Halifax and Toronto. The oldest Irish business in North America. It's right here. In what city is this in?
Kansas City, Missouri.
Nobody would have believed it.
No.
They would have said Boston, New York, Chicago. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, and it's confirmed by the Irish Trade Board, and they think we might be the oldest outside of Ireland, but they just don't have records.
That's amazing. This is a secret that it's just been too big a secret for too long. The rest of the world should know.
And you're doing your part to spread the word.
Yes, we
Happy
are.
to tell people.
It's going to be fun. Oh, there's Big John Sweeney. What's he getting? What's your special? He's ordering that special. What's the special today?
Oh, today it's shepherd's pie. It's
shepherd's pie.
Brown meat with fresh vegetables topped with great Irish potatoes and cheese.
Boy, be sure to give him a double dose or he'll be coming back for more. I know him too well.
Maybe some brown bread to go with that?
That's right. Well, now, was it a deli back in the beginning?
No, we think it was like a mercantile. We picture it like a Little House on the Prairie, Nellie Olson's family place, in the front of their thing. And they had dry goods for trade, eggs that local farmers would bring in, chickens. The relations from Ireland sent lace and different handmade goods that they sold. So it was kind of an everything. And then when they moved here, they got more into the grocery business. And then their daughter, Margaret, married another immigrant, another Kerryman from Knocknagoshel County Kerry, Ireland.
And what was that name?
Jim Brown, James R. Brown Sr. And he went on to start AG, Associated Wholesale Grocers, which is a national
that's a very well-known name.
And he was one of 7 founders. And this was more of a grocery store then. They had fresh meats. They'd always would keep some of the goods that the relations from Ireland would send them. The lace was a big thing that people always talk about. They remember at Brown's. And sweaters would be hand knit by different relatives.
Well, now you're located on Pennsylvania?
Correct, 33rd and Pennsylvania.
Now, do you have any recollections of any stories or any personalities? How far back can you go with what's been handed down to you? From what, 1860?
1880s is when we kind of first started hearing about it. We don't have a lot of stories from back when it was in the front of their house, and in fact the only way we know that is we've looked up records.
Oh, that's
because it was the same address. The business was the same address as their home, so we're just assuming it was in the front of their house because in that time that's how things were set up.
Sure.
But once they moved here, we have more records because it was a huge deal that they started this company outside of town. And we have lots of stories. There's so many, you don't know which ones are a bit of yarns and which ones are...
Oh, that's right. Well, why don't you share a few with us, because as I told you earlier, this broadcast is going to be around for a long time. Maybe 100 years from now, people will say, what were they like back in 2007, and what did they remember?
Way back when.
So it'd be nice if we could talk to those people in 1880, but we can't. But now we can talk to the people in 3007. So what stories do you think, what sort of sticks with you as something you really remember?
What an undertaking this building was to make. And we look at it now, and it's just a simple brick building. But something they talked a lot, we have this big oak walk-in cooler, and I guess they had to build it in place and then build the building around it. So that was quite a thing. And then what my great-grandfather remembered was how buildings looked in Ireland. So when we first went to Ireland, we were amazed, like in Limerick and on the way to County Kerry, how the buildings look like the outside of this one, even though this may not look like other buildings in this area. So I think that's funny how he brought a bit of his homeland because it's what he knew best. And then a few years later, he built a duplex just to the south of the building, and that has a very typical Irish look too, Southwest Irish look. And then he and his wife and family moved into the second floor of the duplex.
Well, boy, now is there anything about their personalities, or what about the folks that came in and did shopping back then? Do you ever have any stories about that?
Well, everything I hear about Mary Dillon Flavin, Dillon was her maiden name, was just what a hard worker for that time, and I'm sure all women were a lot more than you get credit for back then. but how strong she was, that she worked every day, she was very significant to the business, and she was raising a family. So what an incredible undertaking that must have been for her. And then he was, someone referred to both he and my grandfather and father as hail fellow, well met. Just that they were, knew everybody by name, friendly, wanted to greet them when they came in.
And those are just the kind of people that make a city work and that you have to build around, because you got to have somebody that's friend with the community and they'll also pass the word on. I imagine it was almost like a general store in some sense, where people would pass on the news in the community, which you're doing right now today.
Right. Unfortunately, my husband John is very much like that too. So he kind of carried the torch of being the guy who remembers everybody's name. And
well, John, now what's John's full name?
John McLean.
McLean. Where does that hail from?
He has family in Ireland and Scotland. It's more far removed, and his father's been great about telling me lots of details and information, but I'm not as clear on that.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, you always remember your own name the best.
Yeah. Well, it's been drilled into me for many, many years. So
that's right.
But you were talking about the old days. We have our deli tables now have cloths on them, but underneath there's checkerboards, because that was reminiscent. They said that back then there'd be, just like in the pictures you see, barrels with checkerboards on top, and when it was quiet, all the locals would come in and hang out and tell stories and play checkers. And that's something we've even found kind of through good and bad times in the last 25 years since John and I have had it, that it's a place where everybody wants to come. I remember after 9/11, which everybody was so devastated, that day we had more people in here just because they wanted to come to a place of comfort, where they could share thoughts and feel like they had a sense of family around them.
It's a lot more than a store. Mm-hmm. There's just no doubt about it. Now, you're active in the Irish community today. You've done, I know the St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee.
Yeah. I've served on the board for 15 or 20 years, a long time.
And you were even the Grand Marshal at least once.
My mother was in 2002, and oh my God, she was the most proud lady. Her name was Margie, and her maiden name was Blake Brown. She wore that title for a year. Everywhere she went, she'd introduce herself that way. She was, a very proud Irish lady.
Oh, that's a fantastic honor, and nobody deserved it more than right down here at Brown's. What else have you done? You've been active in several things, haven't you?
We've done that. I have been on the IOU, which is the Irish Organization of Underwriters, which kind of started getting sponsorship for two festivals we had in Kansas City, the Brookside Irish Fest and the Westport Irish Fest, which a few years ago we joined those into the Kansas City Irish Fest, which now is a phenomenal event. That group is just amazing what they've done, and made Kansas City Irish community really celebrate itself and its heritage once a year on Labor Day down at Crown Center.
And isn't that interesting? All the years, all we had was a parade for so long when Murphy and the Hibernians and those guys started it up. Mm-hmm. And now the Irish Festival actually takes it to another level. And that just started how many years ago? Just a couple, wasn't it?
The Downtown Irish Fest, I think this is their 4th year in Crown Center. And then there was the separate festivals for about 6 years before that.
Yeah, separate festivals around little communities.
Right, the two smaller communities that they joined to make the one big one.
Right. And so this one it's the Brookside and which one?
Brookside and Westport.
That means Brookside and Westport were sort of hotbeds of Irish culture and activity. At least there's a lot of folks there that support it.
Right.
And then 100 years from now, that might be important because the whole town might be a parking lot. We don't know.
Well, but look at Westport 100 years ago. It was the hotbed of Kansas City, and now it's still an amazing thing. So that's neat to think that one area has kept the interest so long.
That's right. If you could have gone back 150 years ago and shown an Irishman what it is today, tears would come to his eyes.
Well, Daniel Boone's brother, didn't he own that corner post on the corner of Westport?
Yeah, I've heard talk about that. I have to check those facts out before I believe them, but it sure sounds good, and it probably is true. How about any personalities over the years, either now or way back in the past, that you remember any stories you're talking about?
We have lots of great personalities. There used to be a group up the street that put promoted movies. So whenever the celebrities were in town, they'd bring them down for a good corned beef sandwich. And we had like the group from Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Now, did any of them come in and tear up the place like back in the old days? Back in the
No,
cowboy
they
days?
didn't. I'm going blank on Dom DeLuise.
Yeah.
A lot of fun characters. We've had a lot of dignitaries from Ireland, the Irish consulate. We had the Lord Mayor of Westport, Ireland, which is a sister city to Westport, Kansas City.
Right. Now, how many people fit in here? Now, the Irish Roots Cafe, where we come from, we got, you could probably get maybe 35 people inside, and then you get another 15 or 20 on the deck, and then we got a big field out there so we can put picnic tables up and hold half the city. How many people actually can you hold here legally?
Well, this is about like the Irish Cafe. I think comfortably you could fit 35, but we've certainly had up to 100 in here. But on St. Patrick's Day and other events, we close off the street, have accommodations for another 500, and in a few weeks we're having a big 120th anniversary celebration where we're going to have a whole street fair, and we expect thousands for that.
And you're celebrating the 120th anniversary of Browne's in Kansas City, which is the oldest Irish business in North America.
Correct.
As validated by the Irish
Trade Board.
You can't beat that.
No. In fact, the Trade Board has said they're going to be here for the 120th anniversary because they're so proud of us and want to be part of the celebrations.
Boy, I'd like to come back too. Maybe I'll be able to talk to you into giving me a little bit of space where I can interview people as they come through on Irish history.
Oh, we'd love that. And then that would be something that we would have for the 240th anniversary.
That's right. Your descendants could look at that and say,
exactly.
That's my great-great-granny.
God love her.
Not that I want to remind you anything like that.
You were talking about different Irish involvement. John and I were really honored to be named Mr. and Mrs. Irish this year at the Brookside Parade.
Right, I saw that on your
So that was really fun.
Right.
And then the Irish Museum just started this year, too. In Kansas City, and that was something. We had some of those early meetings here at Browne's. We used to have a meeting every couple weeks here.
Yeah.
So Browne's has been the start of a lot of great things. We have Irish language classes here. We have Irish cooking classes. Lots of things that started, and then we let other people take it away.
That's right. Well,
and really make it good.
That's right. Somebody has to give birth.
Yeah.
Just like giving birth to a child and they grow up to become president of the United States. Some of your little ideas just grow to be bigger and bigger all the time. Well, now that we're coming to the end, can you think of any other interesting stories or things that might have happened associated with the long history of Browne's?
We had a fire here in the 50s.
And luckily, if that fire had come down, it might have changed history.
Yeah, we think of that a lot. It was in the apartments upstairs, and there's a lot of water damage, which is kind of we see around to remind us.
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of photographs and different things that we would have had from before that were destroyed in that. So unfortunately, we don't have as much documentation.
Oh, that's right.
My sister and I, when we were in high schools, interviewed some relatives and different things and got information of how the store might have been. So we made a little miniature store. And it was really great for us because it gave us a better feel of what it must have been like back then with the, how much more work everything went. So the bins of open food. There's one lady who comes in here and she's probably 85. She's been coming in since she was a little girl. And she said my grandfather was a 6'4" strong guy with a strong Irish brogue, and she'd look at him and be a little scared, and she'd try to sneak a cookie. She one time took a chocolate graham cracker cookie out of the bin. She says the only thing I ever stole in my life, and I had to go right up to church and confess it, that Mr. Browne was going to catch me and tell everybody. So she said I never stole again after that, and I've never had another chocolate-covered graham cookie after that.
Boy, you learn a lot of lessons right here at Browne's. That's one more of the important ones, I'm telling you. And this started around the 1880 or so. Back then they had torchlight parades on St. Patrick's Day. Can you imagine a big group of Irishmen walking down the street with torches lit on St. Patrick's evening?
No. Just doesn't seem safe, does it?
That's why I'm saying you're real lucky that this place is still standing. Well, that's great.
We have the streetcar stops, poles still out front. They never changed it.
Oh, that's
so that's
nice.
kind of neat. You think of all the times when the streetcars stopped here and dumped off people. Where were they going? Where were they headed? Did they stop in and tell everybody about their day? Wouldn't you just love to travel back in time for a minute and get some of those stories?
Oh, that's right. They'd go on forever.
Yeah. And we have a picture of my aunt as a little girl standing in front of the streetcar out front. So that's about 85 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Boy, I wish we had some of those stories. Could have kept a book right here, a little journal, and written down things that had happened.
Yeah, and that's actually something the last 10 years we started because people come in and said, oh, I remember a story, and I couldn't remember them all. So we keep a journal. When somebody starts out with that, we hand it to them. So
Great.
now there is a book of some different great stories.
And it also lets you get back to work.
Because as the Irish, they can go on a bit with those stories. So writing it down's a good thing.
That's good. That's right. It's good from the best. And so you got the Brown heritage. What other lines come into your heritage?
My mom was a Blake, and her family's in Camp, which is near Dingle on the Dingle Peninsula.
Oh, you still?
And in Ballybunion.
Okay.
So they're all Kerry people.
Right.
And ironically, Blake and Brown were two of the tribes of Galway.
That's right.
So they met, and I think it's something interesting, and a lot of listeners might find this too, that the relations that marry here end up being 5 minutes apart back in Ireland.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some sort of tie that binds people together.
Yeah, it could be some kind of strange fate that brings you back together. You don't know what did, but there's something there. I know that's true.
It is.
It happened to me one time. I was over there. I was researching Donahues and Kilmartins on my mother's side, and they had gotten married and produced my mom's line. But I got picked up walking in the hills of Glenflesk by a cab driver. And I started talking to him, and I told him the two names. He says, what names was that? Kelleher and Donahue, and it turns out that his son and daughter-in-law were Kelleher and Donahue, and they were being married later that day. And I thought, boy, there's some connection here with that.
What a small world.
Yeah, it is indeed. Well, we wish you a lot of luck, and hopefully we'll be back here for that celebration. What was the date?
June 16th, 2007. It's going to be on the grounds around Browns at 33rd in Pennsylvania. And, Michael, I mentioned earlier, I just want to thank you, too, for all the interest you've kept up in Irish history. Back when it wasn't trendy and wasn't cool, you were there and you always kept an interest, and I think that's what helped promote it in Kansas City and keep it what it is today.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate that. It sure was a lot of fun, and, of course, back then I was a lot younger and I didn't know any better.
You look just the same.
Not a bit of difference, I know, and you look even younger.
Thank God this is radio.
That's right. We can say anything we want. Well, I can see Big John Sweeney's had his meal and he's ready to move.
Yeah, he's full of shepherd's pie.
Yeah, look. Oh, he's looking at those sushi. I don't know if you got one big enough to fit him.
Maybe before the shepherd's pie it would have fit.
Yeah, that's right, but not any longer. Now, if people come in from out of town, could they come in from out of town for your celebration?
Oh, sure. We expect people from all over. We have some people from Omaha and St. Louis and Chicago who's already said they're coming in, and it's going to be great fun. The Elders is our big closing act, the big local act, and we have Irish dancers. We have a lot of other local musicians. All aren't confirmed yet. There's going to be a children's activity area, a heritage history tent, which we hope you will be set up getting interviews of people.
Oh, man.
So lots of fun stuff to see, and it's also going to be a fundraiser for a local school.
Boy, that'll be great, and we're helping people at the same time.
Yeah.
That's been a hallmark of Browns. They're not just out for themselves. They help the whole community around them.
You got to take care of the people who've been there for you.
Hey, that's right. Any Irish politician will tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, it's been real good. Been real nice talking to you. I can see these guys getting a little antsy. They'll probably do a little more shopping, and then they're off into the bus, and I get to go my own way because I led the way in a car. I like to have a little independence. Somebody's got to clear the way to make sure everything's okay when they finally get there.
They guys drag in like they did.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's early in the morning. As a matter of fact, this is the earliest we've ever gotten out and done a broadcast.
Oh, thank you for coming to see us this bright and early. It's not the Irish way to get up early, is it?
Okay, not in my Irish way, I'll tell you that. Well, thank you very much, Kerry. We'll be talking to you later.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. There'll be a lot more later in our other podcast on our Midwest Irish podcast, so be sure to listen in. But here's the one story we're going to go ahead and release today. I hope you enjoy it. Now, why don't you tell us that story about the very first time you ever had a credit card used here at the store?
Sure. Well, it's not that big a deal for most places, but we've been around 110 years and just started accepting credit cards, and we were so excited about it. My mom was at the checkout, and this guy comes up, and, oh, congratulations, sir, as he handed her the credit card. You're our first credit card customer. Oh, will you sign this, and can we take a picture of you? And we're all looking at him. He's a very nice-looking guy, and we said, how did you happen to come to Brown's? Oh, TV4 down the street sent me in.
Right.
And later that night, we're watching the news, and there's this guy on TV4 who's dressed exactly like our very first credit card customer, and it ends up being Puff Daddy. I mean, here's Sean Puffy Combs, a famous guy, and you know he's thinking, why didn't they just say they want my autograph? I know they know who I am, but we didn't. We're just that, you know.
Boy, that's great. You would have thought you would have had a big celebration with a band could have gone
Yeah,
off on that.
yes.
And you would have thought it would have been a Flaherty or a Flavin or a Brown, but it was
no,
Puff
it's Puff Daddy.
Boy, that's great. That's a great story, and I bet you got a million of them. We'll be back for some more later. This is Mike OLaughlin at the Irish Roots Cafe signing off. Be sure to come back next week. Reach me anytime at mike@irishroots.com or drop by the Irish Roots Cafe 24 hours a day. If you'd like your book, music, or family search featured here at the cafe, send an email or mail to me at Box 7575, Kansas City, Missouri, 64116. And don't forget to read the blog that goes with this podcast. I put web addresses and other details in the written blog at irishroots.com. Leave a message or your family search by phone at 1-816-256-3360. Love to get the comments for the show. Members foot the bill so they get first priority, but we are open to all. By the way, a big thank you to all of our members. Up, up,